Chapter 1. The Dawn of a Leader. Once upon a time in the deep woods of Kentucky, in a small log cabin, a boy named Abraham Lincoln was born. He was not born into wealth or comfort, but into a world of hard work and simple pleasures. His family was poor, but what they lacked in wealth, they made up for with love and determination. Abraham's mother, Nancy, was a woman of strong character and kind heart. Even though the family was often short of food and money, she always made sure that Abraham and his sister Sarah were clean, fed, and cared for. She was Abraham's first teacher, instilling in him the values of honesty and hard work. He cherished the moments spent with his mother, learning to read from the Bible by the dim candlelight. His mother would say, "Abe, with knowledge, you can change your stars. Don't let our hardships discourage you." These words stayed with him, kindling a deep desire to learn and grow. But life was full of challenges. When Abraham was just 9 years old, his mother fell sick with a disease called milk sickness. Despite their best efforts, they couldn't save her. This was a heavy blow for young Abraham. He felt lost and lonely without his mother, but he remembered her words, her belief in him, and it gave him strength. Even in the face of this terrible loss, he resolved to honor his mother's teachings. The harsh winters, the loss of his mother, the hard work needed to survive. These experiences molded the young boy, fostering in him resilience and an unwavering spirit. From these humble beginnings, the future leader began to take shape, turning adversity into strength, pain into determination. Little did the world know then that this boy, from a humble log cabin, would one day change the course of a nation. After the loss of his mother, life became even harder for Abraham. His father remarried, and although his stepmother was kind, Abraham missed his mother deeply. He sought comfort in books. They were his escape from the harsh realities of his life. He found solace in the stories, in the words that transported him to different worlds, and he started to dream of a future beyond the boundaries of his log cabin. Books were not easily accessible, but Abraham was undeterred. He borrowed books from anyone who would lend him. Sometimes he would walk miles just to borrow a book. The Bible, Aesop's fables, and biographies of George Washington were among his favorites. Under the glow of the fireplace, he would read, completely absorbed in his books, oblivious to the world around him. His stepmother often remarked, "Abe has an unquenchable thirst for knowledge. I've never seen a boy so eager to learn." Despite their limited means, she supported Abraham's passion for reading, recognizing the spark in his eyes. Learning to write was a greater challenge. Paper and ink were luxuries they could seldom afford, but Abraham was resourceful. He used charcoal to write on wooden planks, practicing his letters until they were neat and clear. When he did manage to get paper, he would write and rewrite on the same sheet until every inch was covered. His perseverance was tested time and again. The long hours spent working in the fields left him exhausted, and often he had to read and write by the dying light of the fireplace. But he didn't mind the hardship. He was fueled by a burning desire to learn, to grow, to rise above his circumstances. This part of Abraham's life was a testament to his unwavering determination and love for knowledge. His zeal for learning, the countless hours spent poring over books by the firelight, the miles walked to borrow a single book, these were the early signs of the extraordinary leader he was to become. It was these early struggles and his determination to overcome them that laid the foundation for the future President of the United States. Abraham's thirst for knowledge and his hard work began to open doors for him. He took up various jobs to support his family and to pay for books. He was a shopkeeper, a postmaster, and even a surveyor. Each job gave him a glimpse into the lives of different people, their struggles, and their dreams. It was during these years that he developed a deep sense of empathy for his fellow citizens, an attribute that would later define his political career. One memorable job was working as a flatboatman. He took goods from his native Indiana down the Mississippi River to the bustling market of New Orleans. It was there that Abraham witnessed the harsh reality of slavery. He saw men, women, and children being bought and sold like commodities. The sight of the slave auction stirred a deep sense of anger and sadness in him. He could not shake off the images he saw, and they sowed the seeds of his lifelong stand against slavery. Abraham's experiences and reading had shaped his thinking, his values. He developed a strong belief in the idea of democracy, of a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Inspired by these ideals, he decided to step into the world of politics. He believed that it was his calling to make a difference, to fight for a better, fairer society. In 1834, he won his first election to the Illinois state legislature. Even though he was a humble, self-educated man from a log cabin, his passion and his dedication set him apart. His fellow legislators could not help but admire his clear thinking, his logical arguments, and above all, his integrity. These early experiences, the jobs he took up, the injustice he saw, his first steps into politics, were all shaping him, preparing him for the great role he was destined to play. Little did he know that this young man from a log cabin was on the path to becoming one of the greatest leaders in American history. Chapter 2. The Rough Road to Success. Abraham Lincoln's entry into politics was a modest one. As a state legislator in Illinois, he was just one among many voices. Yet he stood out. His tall figure, his honest speeches, and his sense of justice marked him as someone different. But being different was not always easy. The world of politics was more complicated than he had imagined. There were alliances to be formed, compromises to be made, and sometimes battles to be lost. He was challenged and questioned at every step. His opponents mocked him for his humble origins and lack of formal education. They sneered at his plain, straightforward speeches, yet he refused to change his ways. One of his first political setbacks was his unsuccessful run for the United States Congress in 1843. He had worked tirelessly, campaigned vigorously, and yet he was defeated. This loss was a bitter pill to swallow. Doubts crept into his mind. Was he really cut out for politics? Had he misunderstood his calling? But then he remembered the lessons of his childhood. He thought of his mother's words, the hardships he had overcome, the passion that had driven him to seek a better life for himself and others. He knew that giving up was not an option. He must press on. So he continued his journey. He learned from his defeats, never letting them dampen his spirit. Instead, they steeled his resolve. They showed him that the path to success was often strewn with obstacles and disappointments. But he also learned that setbacks were just opportunities in disguise, opportunities to learn, to grow, and to come back stronger. Abraham's early political career was indeed a rough road, but it was this road that was preparing him for the future. It was shaping him into a leader of great resilience and unwavering determination, a leader who would not be defeated by adversity, but rise above it. His journey was a testament to the power of perseverance and the strength of the human spirit. Amid the swirl of politics and social change, there was one constant in Abraham's life: his love for Mary Todd. Their paths first crossed at a dance in Springfield, Illinois. Abraham was immediately drawn to her intelligence, vivacity, and strong-willed nature. Mary, in turn, was taken by his sincerity, his wit, and his potential for greatness. They fell in love, and in 1842, they were married. Married life brought happiness, but also new challenges. Mary's family was from the upper class, a world of privilege and etiquette, quite different from Abraham's humble beginnings. He often felt out of place in this new environment, and this sometimes led to disagreements. But their love for each other was strong, and they worked through their differences, growing together. Their joy multiplied with the arrival of their sons. Each birth was a celebration, a burst of sunshine. Abraham was a doting father, cherishing the moments he spent with his children amidst his busy life. These were his sanctuary, his source of peace and joy. But life is a mixture of joy and sorrow. In 1850, their second son, Eddie, died just before his 4th birthday. The loss was a terrible blow. Abraham was crushed, his heart filled with a sorrow so profound it seemed to consume him. He questioned life. its unfairness. He grieved deeply, his heart aching with every reminder of his lost son. In his darkest moments, Abraham found solace in his work, his family, and his dream of a better world. His grief did not harden his heart, but softened it. It deepened his empathy, his understanding of the pain of loss. It made him more human, more relatable. The story of Abraham and Mary's love, their shared joys and heart-rending losses, added new dimensions to his character. It showed that behind the public figure was a man who loved deeply, grieved deeply, and yet had the strength to continue his journey, no matter how rough the road. In the midst of personal struggles and loss, Lincoln found the strength to return to politics. The country was on the brink of a crisis, and he felt compelled to take a stand. Slavery was spreading, causing tension between the northern and southern states. Lincoln's experiences in New Orleans and his inherent sense of justice made him a staunch opponent of this inhuman practice. In 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed settlers in the Western Territories to decide for themselves whether to allow slavery, sparked controversy across the nation. Lincoln couldn't sit idly by. He saw it as a threat to the principles of freedom and equality upon which the country was built. His re-entry into politics was marked by his passionate opposition to the spread of slavery. He took to the stage, delivering eloquent speeches that captured the attention of the nation. His words were like a clarion call, stirring the hearts of those who heard them. He argued not just with political rhetoric, but with deep-seated conviction. "We are a nation conceived in liberty, all men created equal," he would say. "We cannot stray from these principles. We cannot let the shadow of slavery darken our lands." His strong stance against slavery put him at odds with many in the political sphere, yet he didn't back down. He held on to his beliefs, standing up against injustice, even at the risk of his political career. Lincoln's re-entry into politics and his unwavering stance against slavery were significant. They marked his transition from a humble legislator to a national figure, a statesman. He was no longer just a politician. He was a voice for justice, a beacon of hope for those yearning for freedom. Despite the challenges, his path was becoming clear. He was stepping closer to his destiny, a destiny that would forever change the course of American history. Chapter 3. The Path to Presidency. By the late 1850s, Abraham Lincoln had become a prominent figure in the fight against slavery. His stirring speeches had gained national attention, his arguments resonating with many who shared his view. Yet the presidency was not something he initially sought. It was the evolving circumstances of his country that eventually led him to consider it. The United States was on the brink of turmoil, with the question of slavery causing deep divisions. In these troubled times, the call for strong, principled leadership grew louder. Lincoln, with his firm stand against slavery and his reputation for honesty and integrity, seemed to be a fitting choice. One day, while discussing the country's predicament with his wife Mary, he said, "I can see no other way. If I can make a difference, if I can halt the spread of this curse, then it is my duty to try." Mary, aware of the challenges, understood and supported his decision. Lincoln's decision to run for president was not a quest for power or glory. It was driven by his deep love for his country and his desire to uphold its founding principles of freedom and equality. The decision was not easy. He knew the journey would be fraught with difficulties, that the road to the White House would be as rough, if not rougher, than any he had traversed. Still, with the support of his family, his conviction in his cause, and his unwavering determination, Lincoln embarked on the journey. It was a journey that would test him like no other, a journey that would take him to the very heart of his nation's struggle, a journey that would ultimately lead him to his destiny. Running for president was no small task. Abraham Lincoln knew that he was stepping into a battle that required strategy, strength, and endurance. As he embarked on his campaign, he faced many challenges. His stand against slavery was a contentious issue, one that divided the public. His opponents used this to their advantage, painting him as a radical who wanted to upend the established order. They tried to undermine his credibility, pointing to his lack of formal education and his humble origins. Moreover, Lincoln did not have the political machinery or the wealth that some of his competitors did. His resources were limited. His strength lay in his conviction, his words, and his growing reputation as a leader of integrity. Throughout his campaign, Lincoln traveled extensively, speaking directly to the people. He held debates, engaged in discussions, and made his positions clear. His speeches, delivered with passion and sincerity, gradually won over many hearts and minds. He told his supporters, "This is not about me. This is about us, about our country. It is about standing up for what is right. We cannot let the shadow of slavery divide us." But the road was long, and the opposition was fierce. There were times when he doubted if he could muster enough support, times when he wondered if his voice was strong enough to be heard. Yet, he never wavered in his commitment. He continued to speak, to argue, to convince, fueled by his belief in his cause. The struggle for support was not easy, but it was a challenge Lincoln was ready to face. He knew that his journey was about more than winning a political race. It was about standing up for his beliefs, about fighting for a cause he deeply believed in. It was about the future of his country. The road to the presidency was a grueling one. Yet after months of tireless campaigning, speaking, and connecting with the people, the day of the election finally arrived. It was a day filled with anticipation, tension, and hope. As the results started coming in, it was clear that Lincoln's messages had resonated with many. His stand against slavery, his vision of unity, and his reputation for honesty and integrity had won the hearts of many Americans. As the final tally was announced, it was confirmed. Abraham Lincoln was the 16th President of the United States. The news of his victory was met with mixed reactions. In the northern states, there was jubilation. Crowds cheered, church bells rang, and fireworks lit up the night sky. The joy was palpable, the celebration spontaneous. In Lincoln's home, the mood was one of relief and quiet joy. Lincoln himself was overwhelmed, humbled by the faith the people had placed in him. He was aware of the responsibility he had shouldered, and he was determined to live up to it. In a heartfelt address to his supporters, he said, "This victory is not mine alone. It belongs to all of us. It is a testament to our shared belief in the principles of freedom and equality." Yet, amid the celebration, Lincoln knew that the real work was just beginning. The nation was on the brink of crisis, and the responsibility of guiding it through the looming turmoil rested on his shoulders. But that was a concern for another day. For now, it was a moment of victory, a moment to savor, a moment to remember. The journey to the presidency had been hard, but Lincoln had triumphed. He was no longer just Abraham Lincoln from Illinois. He was President Abraham Lincoln, the leader of a nation. His dream had become a reality, marking the beginning of a new, significant chapter in his life. Chapter 4. The Onset of Conflict. As Lincoln assumed the presidency, the United States was a nation on the brink. The question of slavery had caused deep divisions. The southern states, fearful of Lincoln's anti-slavery stance, felt their way of life was under threat. The tension was palpable, and the threat of conflict loomed large. Only a month after Lincoln's inauguration, the storm finally broke. The Confederate States, led by South Carolina, declared their secession from the Union. It was a direct challenge to Lincoln's presidency and the unity of the nation. The American Civil War had begun. For Lincoln, this was a nightmare scenario. He had hoped to resolve the issue of slavery through dialogue and political means. Yet his hopes had been dashed. His beloved country was now torn by conflict, brother against brother, state against state. Despite the daunting situation, Lincoln did not waver. He was deeply saddened by the outbreak of the war, but he also knew that the principles he stood for, unity, freedom, and equality, were now at stake. In a stirring speech to the nation, he declared, "We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. We shall overcome this crisis, for we are one nation." The war was not something Lincoln wanted, but it was a battle he was prepared to fight. The peaceful resolution he had hoped for was now out of reach, but his resolve to preserve the Union was stronger than ever. The nation was divided, the future uncertain, but Lincoln, with his unwavering commitment, stood firm at the helm, ready to steer his country through the tumultuous times ahead. Leading a nation in the midst of war was an arduous task. For President Lincoln, every day brought new challenges. There were battles to be won, strategies to be formed, and decisions to be made. Yet perhaps the greatest challenge was dealing with the human cost of the conflict. One of the first major battles of the war, the Battle of Bull Run, ended in a crushing defeat for the Union. The loss was a bitter blow. It showed that the war was going to be tougher and longer than anyone had anticipated. Lincoln felt the weight of the defeat deeply. He realized that he needed a stronger military strategy and more capable leaders. In response, he appointed General George McClellan as commander of the Union Army. However, this decision proved challenging. McClellan was a skilled strategist, but also overly cautious, often hesitating to engage the enemy. This led to frustration for Lincoln, who felt the urgency of achieving military victories. Yet, amidst the military concerns, Lincoln never lost sight of the human aspect of the war. He was deeply affected by the loss of life, the families torn apart, and the devastation caused by the conflict. He received letters from soldiers and their loved ones, each one a poignant reminder of the price of the war. In these challenging times, Lincoln proved himself to be a leader of great strength and compassion. He worked tirelessly, often late into the night, poring over battle plans and dispatches. He faced criticism and opposition, yet he stood firm in his commitment to the Union cause. It was a trial of leadership like no other, a test of his resolve, resilience, and humanity. But Lincoln, with his unwavering commitment to his country, faced the challenges head-on, determined to guide his nation through the war and towards a future of unity and peace. As the Civil War raged on, Lincoln faced a decision that would define his presidency and alter the course of American history. The issue of slavery, the very cause of the conflict, was still unresolved. Lincoln knew it was time to take decisive action. After much thought and consultation, Lincoln made a daring move. On September 22, 1862, he issued a preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. This decree declared that unless the rebel states returned to the Union by the start of the new year, their slaves would be considered forever free. The decision was not an easy one. It carried significant risks, both political and personal. Many in the North were not ready for such a radical step, while in the South, it would undoubtedly strengthen the resolve of the Confederacy. Yet for Lincoln, it was a matter of moral imperative. He believed in the principle of freedom for all, and the Emancipation Proclamation was a significant step towards realizing that vision. On January 1, 1863, the final Emancipation Proclamation was issued. Lincoln felt a profound sense of responsibility as he signed the document. He knew that he was changing the course of millions of lives and shaping the future of his nation. In a letter to a friend, he wrote, "I never, in my life, felt more certain that I was doing right than I do in signing this paper." The Emancipation Proclamation did not end slavery overnight. It didn't even free all slaves, only those in the Confederacy. But it marked a pivotal moment in the struggle for freedom and equality. It demonstrated Lincoln's firm commitment to ending slavery and served as a beacon of hope for millions. In the midst of conflict, Lincoln had made a bold move, one that showcased his courage, his integrity, and his unyielding belief in the principles of freedom and equality. It was a decision that would forever mark his place in history as not just a leader in war, but also a champion for human rights. Chapter 5. The Toll of War. As the war progressed, its devastating impact was felt all across the nation. Each battle brought more casualties, more loss, more heartbreak. The war seemed unending, and to many, it felt like a battle without a clear victory in sight. As president, Lincoln felt the weight of the war deeply. Every report of casualties was a blow. Every letter from a grieving family, a stark reminder of the price the nation was paying for this conflict. His heart ached for the suffering of his people, yet he knew he had a duty to fulfill. Despite the difficulties, Lincoln remained steadfast in his resolve. He continued to make tough decisions, always with the objective of preserving the Union and ending slavery. He replaced generals, strategized battle plans, and even visited battlefields, ever present and involved in the course of the war. His strength of character was evident in his dealings with his advisors and military generals. He listened, learned, and led with a firm hand. Yet he never let the power of his position override his sense of compassion and humanity. He often visited wounded soldiers, comforting them, listening to their stories, reminding them of the cause they were fighting for. The war was taking a toll on the nation and on Lincoln himself. Yet he refused to give in to despair. In a letter to a friend, he wrote, "I expect to maintain this contest until successful, or till I die." The battles raged on, each day bringing new challenges. But Lincoln, armed with his unwavering resolve and profound belief in his cause, soldiered on. The war was an endless battle, but Lincoln faced it head-on, determined to see his nation through to peace and unity. In the midst of the war, Lincoln also faced battles of a different kind. Known to have suffered from what was then called melancholy, today understood as depression, Lincoln faced the internal struggle of his mental health. The pressures of the presidency, the toll of the war, and the personal loss he experienced only intensified his depressive episodes. His beloved son Willie, only 11 years old, died in 1862. The loss was devastating for Lincoln and his wife Mary. Grief-stricken, Lincoln often found himself in dark moments of sorrow and despair. In these times, Lincoln's innate resilience shone through. He sought solace in literature, often reading works of Shakespeare and poetry, finding comfort and perspective in their timeless words. He also found strength in his work, throwing himself into his duties, focused on the task of preserving the Union. Lincoln's ability to face his personal struggles, alongside the monumental task of leading a nation at war, speaks volumes about his strength of character. He once wrote, "In the end, it's not the years in your life that count. It's the life in your years." Through his depression and grief, Lincoln proved himself not only a great leader but also a man of immense personal strength and resilience. He faced his personal struggles head-on, just as he did the trials of his nation, with courage, determination, and an unyielding hope for better days ahead. Amidst the darkness of the war, Lincoln brought a glimmer of light through his words. On November 19, 1863, he was invited to deliver a few appropriate remarks at the dedication of a cemetery at Gettysburg, a site of one of the war's most brutal battles. What he delivered, however, was more than just remarks. It was a speech that would echo through history, the Gettysburg Address. In just over 2 minutes, with less than 300 words, Lincoln presented his vision of the nation's future. He spoke of a new birth of freedom, envisioning a country united, where equality was not just a principle but a living reality. His words gave hope to a weary nation, reminding them of the ideals they were fighting for. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal, he began. With these words, he linked the war's purpose, freedom and equality, to the very foundations of the nation. Lincoln's voice, filled with conviction and passion, resonated through the crowd. Each word, carefully chosen, etched a picture of a nation that could be, a nation that would rise from the ashes of war stronger and more united. The Gettysburg Address was more than a speech, it was a beacon of hope. Lincoln's words, ringing with sincerity and fervor, rekindled the spirit of a beleaguered nation. It reminded the people that their struggle, no matter how challenging, was not in vain, that they were part of a larger narrative, one of growth, freedom, and progress. In the depths of despair, Lincoln's words provided the guiding light that the nation so desperately needed. Chapter 6. Triumph and Tragedy. After long, agonizing years of conflict, the end of the Civil War was finally in sight. On April 9, 1865. The Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Union General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia. The news of the surrender spread like wildfire, reaching Washington the following day. The war was over. The Union was saved. Lincoln, upon hearing the news, let out a sigh of relief, his heart swelling with a mix of joy and sorrow. The cost had been high, but the nation he had fought so hard to preserve was now on a path to healing and unity. The joy of victory, however, was tinged with the weight of the lives lost, a reminder of the price of peace. He stepped out onto the balcony of the White House, where a crowd had gathered, waiting to hear from their president. He looked at the sea of faces, full of hope and expectation. His eyes welled up as he addressed his people, not as a distant leader, but as a fellow citizen who had shared in their sufferings. In his address, he spoke not of triumph, but of reconciliation. He urged the people to welcome the Southern states back, with malice towards none, with charity for all. His words echoed his deep-seated belief in a united, peaceful country where all were free. The end of the war was a hard-won peace, but it was also a beginning, a chance for the nation to heal its wounds, to learn from its past, and to build a future based on unity and freedom. Lincoln, more than anyone else, understood this. He stood as a beacon of hope and healing, guiding the nation towards a new dawn. As the war drew to a close, another challenge was on the horizon: the presidential election of 1864. The country was weary from war, and Lincoln's political opponents believed this was their chance to take the helm. However, Lincoln's leadership during the war had shown his unyielding dedication to the Union and the cause of freedom. The people voted, and Lincoln was re-elected for a second term. The joy of victory was coupled with a deep sense of responsibility. Lincoln knew the task of rebuilding the nation was monumental. With his re-election, he saw the opportunity to implement his vision for a united country, free of slavery, and dedicated to the principles of equality and justice. His plans for the future were ambitious and forward-thinking. Lincoln wanted to bring about economic development, support education, and most importantly, ensure civil rights for all, including the newly freed slaves. In his second inaugural address, Lincoln expressed these plans and once again called for reconciliation, urging his fellow countrymen to bind up the nation's wounds. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, he declared. Despite the challenges ahead, Lincoln was hopeful and ready to lead the nation towards a brighter future. However, little did he know that he would not get to see the fruition of his ambitious plans. His future was to be cut tragically short, adding a dramatic twist to his thrilling biography. April 14, 1865, just days after the end of the Civil War, Lincoln decided to attend a play at Ford's Theater. He was in high spirits, looking forward to a few hours of leisure. The play was Our American Cousin, a light-hearted comedy. However, the evening was to end not in laughter, but in tragedy. John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer, snuck into Lincoln's box and fired a single shot at the president. The bullet struck Lincoln in the back of the head. He was rushed across the street to a boarding house, but the wound was fatal. The next morning, at 7:22 a.m., Lincoln passed away. The man who had led the nation through its darkest hours was gone. News of Lincoln's assassination spread quickly, plunging the nation into deep sorrow. Tears flowed freely as people struggled to come to terms with the loss of their leader. The nation grieved, not just for the man, but for the vision of unity and freedom he championed. Lincoln's body lay in state at the Capitol, and then was taken on a funeral train across the country. As the train passed through cities and towns, thousands came out to pay their respects, their faces marked with grief and disbelief. The assassination of Lincoln was a shocking end to a life that had been dedicated to the service of the nation. His death, however, did not extinguish the principles he stood for. Lincoln's vision for a united, equal country lived on, his legacy forever etched in the annals of American history. His life and untimely death became a symbol of sacrifice for the greater good, turning his biography into a thrilling, dramatic narrative that continues to inspire to this day. Chapter 7. Lincoln's Legacy. Lincoln's assassination sent shockwaves through the country. It felt as though the nation, which had just started healing from the wounds of the Civil War, was dealt another massive blow. The immediate aftermath was a period of deep mourning, confusion, and uncertainty. In the capital, chaos ensued. The search for the assassin and his accomplices was frantic. John Wilkes Booth was eventually found and killed while resisting capture. Some of his co-conspirators were arrested, tried, and executed. Meanwhile, the responsibility of leading the country fell on Vice President Andrew Johnson. He had the difficult task of guiding a country still divided and raw from the war. However, Johnson's approach to Reconstruction was met with resistance from Congress, leading to further political strife. The grief and anger were not confined to the United States. Lincoln's death reverberated around the world. Countries across the globe sent condolences, expressing their sorrow and support. Lincoln was seen as a martyr for the cause of freedom and unity, and his assassination was widely condemned. Despite the upheaval, Lincoln's death cemented his legacy. His vision for a united nation free from slavery was more relevant than ever. His efforts had led to the abolition of slavery through the 13th Amendment, and the principles he stood for would continue to guide the nation in the years to come. The immediate aftermath of Lincoln's death was a test of the resilience of the nation he had fought so hard to preserve. But even in death, Lincoln was a beacon of hope, his life and legacy inspiring the people to move forward. In the wake of Lincoln's death, the United States faced the enormous task of rebuilding a nation torn apart by war. The years following the Civil War were known as the Reconstruction era, a period that tested the resilience and determination of the American people. Under President Andrew Johnson and later President Ulysses S. Grant, the process of Reconstruction began. It was a challenging and often contentious time. The Southern states had to be reintegrated into the Union, and the rights of former slaves needed to be protected. Even though Lincoln was no longer alive, his influence and ideas were deeply felt during this period. His vision for a united and equal nation provided guidance and inspiration. His Emancipation Proclamation and the passage of the 13th Amendment during his presidency had paved the way for the 14th and 15th Amendments, which granted citizenship and voting rights to former slaves. However, the road to true equality was still long and fraught with obstacles. The freed slaves faced discrimination and violence, and the Southern states resisted the changes imposed by the federal government. Throughout this challenging period, Lincoln's principles of freedom, equality, and unity served as a guiding light. His belief in a government of the people, by the people, for the people echoed throughout the nation, reinforcing the commitment to rebuild and heal. Despite the hardships, the nation slowly moved forward. It was a testament to the enduring spirit of the American people and the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln. His life and leadership had shaped the nation, and his influence continued to be felt long after his death. Even in the midst of Reconstruction, Lincoln's presence was a steady, comforting force, reminding everyone of what the country could be: a united, equal, and free nation. Abraham Lincoln is remembered today as one of the greatest presidents in the history of the United States. His leadership during the Civil War, his commitment to ending slavery, and his vision of a united and equal nation have made him a revered figure in American history. His face is etched into Mount Rushmore alongside other esteemed presidents. His image is imprinted on the penny and the $5 bill, and his legacy is enshrined in the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. These physical reminders are testament to Lincoln's enduring impact on the country he served. In schools across the nation, children learn about his humble beginnings, his rise to presidency, his role in ending slavery, and his tragic assassination. He is held up as an example of perseverance, integrity, and compassion. Every year, on the anniversary of his birth, people celebrate Lincoln's birthday. Some states even observe a public holiday, further testament to the high regard in which he is held. In addition, Numerous books, movies, and documentaries continue to explore his life, keeping his memory alive. The Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum in Springfield, Illinois, is dedicated to preserving and sharing the story of Lincoln's life and presidency. It houses an extensive collection of Lincoln-related documents and artifacts, offering visitors a glimpse into his world. Despite the passage of time, Abraham Lincoln remains a symbol of American ideals. His life story, from humble beginnings to the highest office in the land, is a testament to the power of determination, education, and belief in a cause. His legacy is a constant reminder of the nation's potential for growth and progress. In the hearts and minds of the American people and many others around the world, Lincoln's legacy continues to thrive. He is remembered not just as a great president, but as a remarkable human being whose courage, wisdom, and compassion continue to inspire. His story, a thrilling blend of triumph and tragedy, resonates deeply, reminding us all of the power of hope, resilience, and the enduring human spirit. Chapter 8. Unseen Challenges. Despite being a public figure, Abraham Lincoln was at his core an introvert. He was known to be a quiet and reflective man who often retreated into his thoughts. This introverted nature shaped his leadership style in many ways and influenced his approach to the challenges he faced. Lincoln was not the type to command attention or dominate a room. Instead, he had a calm and gentle demeanor, preferring to listen rather than speak. He was thoughtful and deliberate in his actions, often spending time in quiet reflection before making decisions. This thoughtful approach made him a patient and understanding leader, respected by those around him. However, being an introverted leader in a public role wasn't always easy. Lincoln often felt drained by the demands of his position. The constant need to interact with others and the expectation to be always present and engaging could be exhausting. Yet he managed to navigate these challenges with grace and resilience, using his natural strengths to his advantage. For instance, his introverted nature allowed him to be a good listener. He paid attention to different viewpoints and was open to advice from others. This made him a collaborative leader, one who valued the input of his team. His quiet reflection also enabled him to think deeply about issues, considering all aspects before making a decision. Despite the challenges, Lincoln's introverted nature didn't hinder his leadership. Instead, it enhanced it, providing a unique perspective and approach that set him apart. His calm demeanor and thoughtful decision-making provided a sense of stability during a turbulent time in history. Even in his private moments, Lincoln's introverted qualities shone through, demonstrating that leadership comes in different forms and styles. Abraham Lincoln faced numerous personal losses throughout his life, each one leaving a profound impact on his heart. His sorrow was a silent companion, shaping his character and influencing his presidency. As a young boy, Lincoln's life was marked by the tragic death of his mother, Nancy Hanks Lincoln. Losing his mother at such a tender age was devastating, and he often spoke of feeling a great emptiness. This was the first major loss Lincoln experienced, but it wouldn't be the last. Years later, Lincoln was struck by another tragedy, the death of his sister, Sarah. The bond between them had been strong, her loss leaving Lincoln with a deep sense of grief. It was during this period that Lincoln's friends noticed a change in him. His laughter became less frequent, and he seemed to carry a heavy weight of sadness. Then, during his time in the White House, Lincoln suffered the loss of his son, Willie. This was a blow from which Lincoln never fully recovered. He was seen wandering the halls of the White House late at night, haunted by the grief of his son's untimely death. Yet, despite the deep sorrow he carried, Lincoln never let his personal losses impede his responsibilities. He bore his grief quietly, not allowing it to interfere with his role as a leader. His resilience in the face of such personal tragedies is a testament to his incredible strength of character. Lincoln's personal losses and the grief he carried served as a reminder of his humanity and his capacity for deep empathy and compassion. Being the leader of a nation at war brought with it an enormous weight of responsibility. The Civil War was a tumultuous time for America, and Abraham Lincoln was at the helm, trying to steer the nation through these choppy waters. As president, Lincoln was privy to every bit of news from the front lines. Each battle, each victory, each defeat was relayed to him, the pressure building with every report. Every decision he made had far-reaching consequences, impacting the lives of millions of people. But the weight of leadership extended beyond the battlefield. At home, Lincoln had to deal with a divided Congress, public opinion, and the day-to-day tasks of running a nation at war. Every speech, every policy, every action had to be carefully measured and weighed. Despite the pressure, Lincoln showed an incredible level of resilience. He stood firm in his beliefs, guided by a strong moral compass and a deep commitment to preserving the Union. He made tough decisions, shouldered criticisms, and never lost sight of the goal: peace and unity. But behind closed doors, the stress took its toll. Lincoln often looked weary, his face lined with worry. He was said to pace the halls of the White House late at night, deep in thought. It was clear that the weight of a nation at war rested heavily on his shoulders. Despite this, Lincoln never faltered. His strength and resolve in the face of such immense responsibility demonstrate why he is revered as one of the greatest leaders in American history. The weight of a nation was a heavy burden, but Lincoln bore it with grace, resilience, and unwavering determination. Chapter 9. Bright Moments. In the midst of the chaos and turmoil of the Civil War, there was one aspect of Lincoln's personality that provided a glimmer of light: his sense of humor. Despite the seriousness of his position, Lincoln never lost his ability to laugh, both at situations and himself. Lincoln's humor was not simply for entertainment. It was a coping mechanism, a tool he used to lighten the atmosphere during tense meetings or to put people at ease. He was known for his wit and storytelling ability, often telling amusing anecdotes or sharing humorous stories that often had a deeper message. Even amidst the tumult of war, Lincoln found ways to inject humor. He often told jokes or shared humorous stories with his staff and advisors. These moments of levity were a welcome relief, helping to alleviate the constant tension and stress of the war. This humor extended beyond the confines of the White House. Lincoln's speeches were often sprinkled with anecdotes and jokes, providing moments of lightheartedness to the public during a time of great anxiety and fear. Lincoln's humor was a beacon of light during a dark time. It demonstrated his resilience and his humanity, providing comfort and relief not just for him, but for those around him as well. Lincoln's ability to find humor in the midst of chaos is a testament to his character and one of the many reasons he is remembered as a great leader. Throughout his presidency, Abraham Lincoln's family was a beacon of joy and comfort amidst the tumultuous times. The White House wasn't just a political hub. It was also a home where Lincoln found solace in his family. His wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, although often embroiled in controversy, was a supportive partner. She shared Lincoln's political passions, often advising him on various matters. They also shared personal sorrows, drawing them closer amidst their individual challenges. Their sons, Robert, Willie, and Tad, brought much-needed cheerfulness to the Lincoln presidency. Despite the weight of his duties, Lincoln would always find time to spend with his children. He was often seen playing with his sons in the White House gardens or indulging them with storytelling sessions in the evenings. These moments of familial joy brought Lincoln immense pleasure and offered a respite from his strenuous role as a wartime president. Tragically, Willie passed away during Lincoln's presidency, a blow that devastated the family. Yet in these moments of grief, the family grew closer. Lincoln's relationship with his youngest Tad deepened as they leaned on each other for emotional support. Despite their grief, the bond between Lincoln and his family remained strong, providing a sanctuary of love and support. Family in the White House portrays the personal side of Lincoln's presidency, showcasing the comfort and love he found within his family amidst the demanding responsibilities of his role. Abraham Lincoln's political journey was driven by a simple yet powerful vision: a united America where freedom and equality were not just ideals but realities. From his humble beginnings, Lincoln was no stranger to hard work and adversity. He understood the value of opportunity and believed that every individual, regardless of their background or color, deserved a fair chance to succeed. This belief became the cornerstone of his vision. As president, he faced a country divided not just by territory, but also by principles. Slavery had become a contentious issue that had caused deep fractures in the American society. Lincoln saw the injustice and the dire need for change. His dreams weren't merely about ending the Civil War, but ending it with the abolition of slavery. The Emancipation Proclamation, a landmark decision in American history, was a testament to his enduring vision. Despite the political risks and the potential backlash, Lincoln remained steadfast in his pursuit of freedom for all. His famous Gettysburg Address further exemplified his vision. He emphasized the principles of liberty and equality as the foundational values of the nation. He dreamt of an America where government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. A visionary's dream highlights Lincoln's grand aspirations for America, underlining his commitment to freedom and equality. It showcases his courage and determination to transform these dreams into reality, making him a true visionary. Chapter 10. Shadows of War. Abraham Lincoln had never been a soldier, but he found himself leading a nation in the midst of a gruesome civil war. As the war began, Lincoln was acutely aware of the monumental task that lay ahead. The battles were fierce and the losses heavy. Lincoln felt each defeat keenly, sharing in the nation's grief as news of fallen soldiers reached the White House. He was not merely a distant commander-in-chief. He was a leader who carried the weight of every life lost, every family torn apart by the war. Despite the hardships, Lincoln never lost his resolve. He made critical decisions, often going against popular opinion to ensure the survival of the Union. He replaced generals, managed strategies, and took an active role in the direction of the war. Lincoln's determination was unyielding as he steadfastly believed in the cause he was fighting for: a united and free nation. The battlefront showcases Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War's critical events. It highlights his courage, determination, and deep empathy for the people he was leading. Even in the darkest hours, Lincoln's unwavering commitment to the Union shone bright, making him a beacon of hope for the nation. As the Civil War raged on, Abraham Lincoln found himself at the helm of countless tough decisions. With every strategic move, there was a risk and a cost. Each choice was a tightrope walk between right and wrong, between victory and defeat. Lincoln's most agonizing decision came with the Emancipation Proclamation, a choice that would free millions but potentially extend the war. With a heavy heart, he signed the document, acknowledging that the path to freedom was paved with struggle and sacrifice. Yet, amidst the trials, there were triumphs. His decision to promote Ulysses S. Grant, though controversial, proved crucial in turning the tide of the war in favor of the Union. Despite doubts and criticisms, Lincoln stood firm, guided by his belief in the Union's cause and his deep-seated sense of justice. Painful Decisions delves into Lincoln's role in key strategic decisions, his regrets and triumphs. It offers a glimpse into the mind of a leader tasked with steering a nation through its darkest hour, demonstrating how Lincoln's unwavering commitment to justice guided him through the turbulent seas of conflict and controversy. As the ink dried on the Emancipation Proclamation, it wasn't just a piece of paper that Lincoln held, but the very future of the United States. His decision, bold and daring, echoed around the nation, bringing hope and fear in equal measure. To the slaves, it was a beacon of freedom, a promise of a new life. Across the battlefields, the proclamation invigorated Union soldiers, giving them a moral cause to fight for. Lincoln himself was moved, viewing it as a divine duty fulfilled. His heart swelled with hope for the future. Yet, to the South, it was a challenge, a threat that stirred the hornet's nest. The war that had begun for secession had now morphed into a fight for the very institution the South had built its wealth and society upon: slavery. Message of Freedom reveals the profound impact of the Emancipation Proclamation on the Civil War and the country. It reflects Lincoln's inner turmoil and satisfaction as his brave decision reshaped the course of the nation's history. sowing the seeds for a more equal America. Chapter 11. Towards Victory. In 1864, Lincoln stood once again before the nation, seeking re-election amidst the chaos of the war. Victory seemed elusive, as many people doubted his leadership and his policy on slavery. Lincoln, however, held steadfast, a tower of resolve against the storm of uncertainty. Then the unexpected happened. The war took a turn for the better. Union forces began to win significant battles, and public opinion shifted. A glimmer of hope started to emerge, like the first rays of sunlight after a long, dreary night. The people of America looked towards Lincoln again, this time with admiration and respect. Flicker of Hope explores Lincoln's re-election and the shifting tide of the war, depicting the exhilaration, relief, and renewed determination that filled Lincoln as the dream of peace and unity seemed increasingly within reach. Lincoln's vision extended beyond the war, reaching into the future of a united nation. With his re-election, he had a new opportunity to share his dream. Lincoln began outlining plans for peace, focusing on healing the deep wounds inflicted by the Civil War. His goal was not to punish the South, but to reintegrate them back into the Union. He often said, "With malice toward none, with charity for all," showing his intent to mend, not divide. Promising Peace delves into Lincoln's strategies and dreams for peace. As you read, you will see how Lincoln navigated the treacherous political landscape, all while carrying the weight of a nation's future on his shoulders. His deep desire for unity and peace is at the heart of this story. The day the Civil War ended, the whole nation let out a collective breath of relief. News of the South's surrender spread like wildfire, reaching even the furthest corners of the country. People flooded the streets, celebrating the end of the long and brutal war. Amid the jubilation, Lincoln found a moment of peace. He stood in the Oval Office, staring out the window at the sea of celebrating people. He felt a deep sense of relief mixed with sadness for all the lives lost. But above all, he felt a spark of hope for the future. This was the final victory he had been fighting for all along. In this part, Final Victory, we explore the profound emotions Lincoln experienced when the Civil War ended. We delve into his relief, his sorrow, and his hopes for a brighter future for the United States. Chapter 12. The Final Act. April 14, 1865. A joyous evening at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. Lincoln, seeking a moment of diversion from the cares of presidency, had come to enjoy a play, Our American Cousin. Little did he know that this night was destined to be his last. As he watched the actors, Lincoln's mind drifted away from the humor of the play, reflecting instead on the challenges that lay ahead. His face, lined with the stress of the past years, softened as he laughed at the comic scenes, the crowd around him oblivious to the thoughts swirling in his head. This part, A Night at Ford's Theater, explores the intense emotions Lincoln experienced during his last moments. Unaware of his impending fate, we follow him as he navigates through his thoughts on the nation's future, even as he tries to enjoy a rare moment of levity. The news spread quickly. Abraham Lincoln, the president, the man who had steered the nation through its darkest hours, was dead. A deep, profound sadness settled over the country as people grappled with the sudden, unimaginable loss. On the streets, people gathered in small groups, speaking in hushed voices. The once bustling city fell eerily silent. Even those who had disagreed with Lincoln's policies could not deny the hole that his death left. He was not just a president, he was a beacon of hope, and now that light was gone. This part, A Nation in Shock, delves into the immediate aftermath of Lincoln's assassination. It captures the shock, confusion, and intense sorrow that gripped the nation, bringing the story to a heart-wrenching climax. The nation came to a standstill. Trains halted, businesses closed, and flags flew at half-mast. America was in mourning. In cities and towns across the country, people lined the streets to say goodbye to their fallen leader. His funeral, held in the White House, was a somber affair. Men, women, and children, their faces etched with sorrow, paid their last respects. There were no celebrations, No parades, only the steady rhythm of a funeral march. A horse-drawn carriage carried Lincoln's coffin through silent streets. Thousands followed, their heads bowed in grief. Despite their own pain, they were there to support each other, a testament to the unity that Lincoln had so fervently believed in. In A Farewell to a Hero, the sense of collective grief and loss that swept through the nation following Lincoln's death is explored. It was a tragic end, but also a testament to the deep impact he had made on his country. His legacy was etched not just in laws and speeches, but in the hearts of the people he had served. Chapter 13. The Man Behind the Legend. Beyond the public image of the man who led a nation through its darkest times, Abraham Lincoln was, in essence, a man of humble beginnings with a big heart. He was known for his honesty, a trait that earned him the nickname Honest Abe. His humor was legendary, and he often used it to ease tense situations. Lincoln loved reading. As a child, he would walk miles just to borrow a book. His love for learning was a pillar of his life, driving him to educate himself and rise from a log cabin to the White House. His wisdom often poured out in the form of his memorable quotes that still inspire people today. However, Lincoln was also a man familiar with sorrow. He lost his mother at a young age, and later, two of his sons. His life was full of challenges, but his resilience in facing them was remarkable. The human side of Lincoln delves into these aspects of his personality, painting a picture of a man who, despite his trials and tribulations, led with kindness, determination, and a vision for a better future. Life after Lincoln's death was incredibly tough for Mary Todd Lincoln. Their bond had been deep and true, and losing him left her heartbroken. Mary, already burdened by the loss of two sons, now had to face the world without her beloved husband by her side. She was in the White House when the news of Lincoln's assassination arrived. Overwhelmed by grief, she was unable to attend her husband's funeral. The public, too, mourned with her, and her pain was shared by the entire nation. After Lincoln's death, Mary's life was filled with hardships. Her emotional state was fragile, and she had to grapple with financial instability. Her relationship with her remaining sons was strained, and she was often misunderstood by the public. Despite these adversities, Mary Todd Lincoln strove to preserve her husband's legacy. Mary's sorrow provides an in-depth look at the aftermath of Lincoln's death from Mary's perspective, illuminating her struggles, her resilience, and her unwavering dedication to her late husband's memory. Abraham Lincoln was seen differently by friends and adversaries. His friends often marveled at his kindness, honesty, and humor. Even amidst the gloom of war, Lincoln found ways to lighten the mood with a well-timed joke or story. His friend, Joshua Speed, once said about Lincoln, "He draws you close, makes you feel like you are the most important person in the world." His personal secretary, John Nicolay, described Lincoln's compassion, saying, "Lincoln has the kindest heart. He always wants to help." On the other hand, Lincoln's adversaries saw him as a fierce competitor. Jefferson Davis, the President of the Confederate States, called Lincoln a determined and relentless man. His political rival, Stephen Douglas, respected Lincoln's debating skills. "He is a formidable opponent." However, both friends and foes acknowledged his relentless pursuit of justice and unity. Friend and Foe provides insights into how these contrasting views coalesced to create the complex, compelling figure that was Abraham Lincoln. Chapter 14. A Timeless Legacy. Abraham Lincoln's legacy has touched many hearts and influenced generations far beyond his time. His words of wisdom, his fight for freedom and equality, have inspired many leaders worldwide. For instance, Martin Luther King Jr., a leader in the American civil rights movement, often quoted Lincoln in his speeches. He said, "As Abraham Lincoln said, a house divided against itself cannot stand." The echoes of Lincoln's beliefs found a place in King's fight for racial equality. Even international figures like Nelson Mandela found strength in Lincoln's resolve. He reportedly said, "I was inspired by Abraham Lincoln's courage during the Civil War. It gave me strength during my struggle." Influencing generations, shines a light on how Lincoln's principles and actions continue to shape leaders and inspire people, even in the contemporary world. His legacy is a testament to his timeless appeal and enduring impact. Abraham Lincoln's memory is kept alive in many ways across the United States and beyond. His face is etched onto the penny and the $5 bill, a constant reminder of his influence. The towering Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. is a national symbol, visited by millions each year. But it's not just in monuments and currency that we find Lincoln. His memory lives on in the hearts and minds of people who continue to honor his ideals. Each year, on President's Day, people remember and celebrate Lincoln's leadership and contribution to American history. In classrooms, children learn about the Civil War and Lincoln's vital role in ending slavery. They study his famous Gettysburg Address, understanding the impact of his powerful words. This education keeps his memory alive, inspiring new generations to stand for equality and freedom. An everlasting memory explores how Lincoln's memory continues to be revered and celebrated, even over 150 years after his passing. His legacy has become a part of the collective consciousness, a beacon of courage, freedom, and equality. Abraham Lincoln's life story teaches us many valuable lessons. He was a man of great strength, resilience, and wisdom. But more than that, he was a leader who understood the power of compassion, humility, and the pursuit of a just cause. One of the key lessons from Lincoln's life is his unwavering belief in equality. Despite the prevailing views of his time, Lincoln never swayed from his belief that all men are created equal. This belief guided his actions and decisions, eventually leading to the abolition of slavery. His courage to stand against the tide is a powerful lesson for us today, reminding us to stand up for what we believe in, even when it's difficult. Lincoln also teaches us about the power of resilience. He faced numerous challenges and setbacks, both personally and as a leader. However, he never let these challenges break his spirit. Instead, he used them to learn and grow, demonstrating a resilience that is truly inspiring. Finally, Lincoln's life teaches us the importance of humility and honesty. Despite his high office, Lincoln remained humble and approachable. He was also known for his honesty, earning him the nickname Honest Abe. These traits